Blake Lively has undeniably left an indelible mark in the public eye with some truly unpredictable, jaw-dropping moments, many of which, quite shockingly, led to lawsuits. However, there are countless more instances, hidden beneath the surface, that would make your jaw drop even further if you knew the full extent. As we delve into these wild, unpredictable events, we come face to face with one particularly strange and unforgettable moment, which took place on the set of one of her projects. In this bizarre scenario, Blake found herself in a rather uncomfortable situation with a producer named Jamie Heath, who wasn't just a mere producer but also the CEO of Wayfarer Studios and, to complicate things even more, a longtime best friend of her husband, Justin. During a particular shoot, Blake summoned Jamie, along with other top executives, to her trailer. When Jamie knocked and entered, he was taken aback by what he witnessed. Blake, while breastfeeding, had her makeup being carefully wiped off from her collarbone. Yet she was not topless. When Jamie politely asked if he should return later to allow her privacy, Blake dismissed his concern and urged the meeting to proceed as planned. What followed, however, would become even more perplexing. 2 weeks later, things took a strange twist when Blake confronted Jamie, claiming that she had caught him making eye contact with her, to which Jamie, bewildered, apologized, stating that he hadn't realized his gaze had met hers. The situation quickly escalated, with Blake awkwardly assuring him, "I know you weren't trying to cop a look." This moment between Blake and Jamie seemed to carry an unsettling weight, hinting at something much darker. The timing and context were all too loaded, considering the history of race relations and the horrifying implications of what a simple glance could mean for a black man in history. Especially during the slavery era. It was a time when black men were punished, often executed, for even the slightest interaction with a white woman, including making eye contact. And here was Jamie, a black man, caught in a bizarre confrontation with Blake over something as innocent as a look. It was an uncomfortable and, frankly, absurd moment that only deepened the sense of tension, revealing something disturbing about Blake's worldview. Things only got more complicated when considering Blake's controversial wedding. She chose to marry on a plantation, a place once steeped in the horrors of slavery, where black people were oppressed under the watchful eyes of white masters. This fact alone speaks volumes about the incongruity of her actions, which were later underscored by her insensitive comments towards Jamie, as if suggesting that a black man had no right to make eye contact with her. These layers of discomfort compounded when it was revealed that Blake had an unusual admiration for items from the slavery era. A fascination that raised more than a few eyebrows. It paints a picture of someone so disconnected from the gravity of historical trauma, yet blissfully unaware of the implications of her words and actions. Even more bizarre was an incident where Blake recounted a childhood memory that revealed her discomforting obsession with impersonating a black girl. She admitted to once putting on bronzer and styling her hair into a Scary Spice afro, hoping that it would make her look like a black girl so she could stalk some boys in the arcade. This disturbing admission only serves to further unravel Blake's complex, often uncomfortable relationship with race and identity. But these racially charged moments aren't the only unhinged stories surrounding Blake. Her behavior continued to raise eyebrows as she made peculiar and at times downright alarming statements. For instance, she once sent a text to her husband, Justin, that was equal parts childish and bewildering. "If you ever get around to watching Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I'm Cassie, and like her. I happen to have a few dragons. For better or worse, but usually for better, because my dragons also protect those I fight for." So we all benefit from those gorgeous monsters of mine. You will too, I promise you." In this strange comparison, Blake likened herself, her husband Ryan, and her best friend Taylor Swift to dragons, all-powerful, fiery figures who would protect her at any cost. While this text may have seemed playful, it unwittingly mirrored a key plot point in Game of Thrones, the fate of Cassie, whose dragons, just like Blake's, eventually bring her downfall. The eerie parallel with her relationship with Justin, a figure she could perhaps see as the Jon Snow of her life, hints at something darker. Just as Jon Snow ultimately distances himself from Cassie despite her power, Blake might have predicted a similar fate for her and Justin, albeit in a court of law rather than on a battlefield. In this bizarre and self-fulfilling prophecy, Blake's text to Justin didn't just appear childish, but in hindsight, almost like a foreshadowing of things to come. Of course, Blake's most notable work remains Gossip Girl, where many behind-the-scenes rumors swirled, adding to the mystique and controversy of her career. With all the chaos and drama surrounding her personal life and the way she interacted with others, it's clear that Blake's public persona is as complex and unpredictable as the storylines in the shows she's been part of. What we see on the surface might be just a glimpse of a much darker, far more perplexing reality. During the Gossip Girl tour, Blake Lively's behavior took a strange turn, leaving many shocked by her unrestrained comments and wild antics. One of the most shocking moments came when she made a deeply derogatory comment about her co-star Leighton Meester. In a particularly bizarre statement, Blake pointed at Leighton, who was standing beside her, to emphasize that she was the one being referred to. The air was thick with tension as Blake also made jokes that would have been hard to believe if they hadn't come from her own mouth. She casually referred to her co-stars as monkeys, a statement so off-putting that it left many wondering about the line between humor and disrespect. There was a moment when Blake remarked that Chuck had a pet monkey, one with a matching outfit to his own. She joked, "I would love to be part of the show, but I can't act with a monkey," before trying to laugh it off, claiming it was all in jest. But the situation didn't end there. Blake's cruelty didn't stop at playful jabs. She went as far as to say that Leighton started life from a cage, a blatant dig at Leighton's difficult upbringing. Leighton has opened up in the past about her parents' history and how they were incarcerated when she was born, which added layers of pain and context to Blake's statement. "My parents had been part of a very interesting lifestyle," Leighton once explained. "I guess you could say they were in prison." And yet, Blake casually tossed out this offensive remark, seemingly without any regard for Leighton's personal history or the wounds that might have been opened by such words. But the unhinged behavior didn't stop there. In another cringe-worthy moment from the press tour, Blake made an odd comment about blonde women, saying, "Blondes are nicer anyway." It was a strange thing to say, especially since Leighton, who naturally had blonde hair, had dyed it brown for her role as Blair Waldorf on Gossip Girl. Blake's attempt at comparing their characters based on something as superficial as hair color seemed not only misguided but also bizarrely rooted in a strange rivalry. As if she were trying to cast herself in a better light by belittling Leighton's appearance and character. As we dive deeper into Blake's erratic behavior during this period, it becomes clear that her tendency to make everything about her, and to make others uncomfortable in the process, went beyond casual comments. Blake revealed in one interview that she was told someone online had referred to her as a crown straightener. Intrigued, she asked what that meant, only to learn that it was a term for a woman who goes around straightening other women's crowns, a metaphor for helping others without them even realizing it. Blake, of course, took this as the highest compliment. basking in the notion that she was somehow improving others by subtly altering their actions or appearances, controlling them in a way that served her narrative. It was yet another moment where Blake, perhaps unknowingly, revealed her controlling tendencies, seeing herself as the one who could adjust the lives of others for their own good, or so she thought. And yet, these moments were not just isolated incidents. Every interview seemed to become a stage for Blake's unpredictable and, at times, nonsensical musings. Her answers to questions often seemed detached from reality, and it was impossible to ignore the stunned reactions of her co-stars, who appeared visibly uncomfortable as she spoke. One such interview, where she tried to discuss a movie about female emotion, took a strange turn when Blake, in all seriousness, said, "It's just like hysterical women," only to immediately backpedal, adding, "No, no, no, women also want to listen to Tom York." It was an oddly tone-deaf attempt at humor, which only highlighted her lack of self-awareness and the growing dissonance between her words and the way she was being received by others. Blake's unfiltered approach to humor and her need to make the spotlight hers at any cost even led her to make some deeply uncomfortable and, frankly, bizarre jokes. One particularly jarring moment came when she made a statement about losing her mom. She casually said, "Sorry we're late. I lost my mom. She's supposed to be in Boston, but she's in Barcelona," leaving everyone around her stunned. The offhand way she dropped this joke seemed to suggest that it was just a harmless slip-up. But the lack of clarity only left people confused and uncomfortable. "If anybody's watching and is in Barcelona, could you return my mom to me?" she continued, as if this were an appropriate, or even funny, thing to say. Blake's tendency to say the most random, unfiltered things didn't just end in interviews or press tours, it also extended into her career choices. Her attempt to emulate the success of other films, like Barbie and Oppenheimer, led to her doing everything in her power to get people's attention when her own films, Deadpool and The Last Thing He Wanted, hit theaters. She tried to ride the coattails of their success by making the press rounds in the same vein. Blake's comments about why Deadpool sold out, and her strange musings about Wolverine all seemed like an attempt to create a buzz. But it was clear that she was simply trying to inject herself into a conversation that wasn't really about her. And then there was the incident where Blake openly admitted to not reading the source material for a movie before filming. An admission that, to any actor, would seem unimaginable. Many actors pride themselves on doing deep research, diving into scripts, documents, or real-life stories to better understand their roles. But Blake's casual dismissal of this essential part of her craft was both disrespectful and incredibly telling. It was just another instance of her seeming indifference to the process, as though she could just skate by without putting in the work. Finally, Blake's own history of charges on set further complicated her image. In 2017, as countless women came forward with accusations against powerful producer Harvey Weinstein, Blake seized the moment to share her own story of mistreatment, although she never specified the set or year. This vague reference to her own experience only added to the ongoing narrative of Blake's unrelenting tendency to make everything about herself, no matter the context or the seriousness of the issues at hand. With each passing moment, Blake Lively's public persona grew more erratic, with every statement, joke, and unhinged comment only further cementing her place as a celebrity who seemingly couldn't help but make everything revolve around her, often to the detriment of those around her. Blake Lively's actions on set, particularly during one disturbing encounter with a makeup artist, revealed a side of her that many hadn't expected. She recounted how the artist, someone she trusted in her personal space, began behaving inappropriately, He insisted on applying her lipstick with his finger. A boundary-pushing act that left Blake feeling uncomfortable and violated. But the situation escalated further when, during a night she was staying on location, Blake woke up to find the makeup artist filming her while she slept. Though she was clothed, the violation was clear: she had never consented to being recorded. The accounts from both parties regarding this incident added fuel to an unsettling speculation that the makeup artist may have been black. An insinuation that ties into a darker and more troubling narrative: the belief that Blake may hold some biases, particularly when it comes to working with black people. Though this remains largely unspoken and unproven, the implication left a bitter taste in the air, leading many to wonder about her true nature behind closed doors. But this wasn't the only time Blake's actions seemed callous or indifferent to the feelings of those around her. An even more personal scandal emerged involving her relationship with Deborah Lee Furness, Hugh Jackman's ex-wife. For years, Blake had portrayed a friendly relationship with Deb. Yet it was revealed that, behind the scenes, she had been less than forthcoming. Blake's relationship with Hugh had deepened over time due to their mutual friendship with Ryan Reynolds. But when Hugh's divorce from Deb came to light in 2023 after 27 years of marriage, Blake's behavior became more questionable. It became known that Blake had, at the very least, been aware of Hugh's relationship with Sutton Foster before it went public. And instead of being there for Deb, she had remained silent, even supporting Hugh in the aftermath of the split. Deb found this betrayal particularly difficult to swallow. She had believed that Blake was a friend, someone who would stand by her during such a painful time. But instead, Blake's loyalty seemed to lie with Hugh, as she and Ryan Reynolds quietly endorsed his actions and covered up details of the affair. This betrayal cut even deeper when it was revealed that Deb had always suspected that Blake and Ryan would rally behind Hugh after the split. But what truly infuriated her was the idea that they might have known about Sutton before the world did and chose to remain silent. Deb had hoped that her relationship with Blake would be one of mutual understanding, one that would provide some comfort in an otherwise painful period. But Blake's actions shattered that illusion, leaving Deb feeling utterly alone in a world of false friends. Blake's disregard for others extended to her behavior on set as well. In a particularly chilling moment, she took offense to a simple question from actor Justin Baldoni, who asked about her weight in a delicate attempt to ensure her safety during a scene. Justin was concerned about lifting her due to a back issue, but Blake, in typical fashion, made it about her image and immediately jumped to the offensive. She took it as an affront, brushing aside his concern and later suggesting, quite callously, that Justin get rhinoplasty, a nose job, to correct his features. The suggestion, completely unwarranted and inappropriate, was caught on camera, much to Blake's dismay. When the details surfaced, Blake's attempt to erase the moment from the record only served to make the situation more uncomfortable. Justin, though, wasn't silent. He chose to brush it off and move forward with the scene. But the damage had already been done. However, Blake's actions didn't stop at public jabs. There was one particular instance that left everyone questioning her morals. During a terrifying time when wildfires were ravaging Los Angeles, Justin's family was preparing to evacuate, frantically packing up their children and pets in response to the encroaching flames. Yet, amidst this chaos and fear, Blake's team managed to track Justin down and serve him with legal papers. The timing was not only insensitive, it was downright malicious. To send legal servers to someone in the middle of a disaster, to disrupt their life at such a vulnerable moment, seemed like an act of deliberate cruelty. It was almost as if Blake, from her safe home in New York, saw this as an opportunity to get back at him or further solidify her own power over him. And when the public backlash surrounding Blake began to grow, it was Ryan who attempted to control the narrative, using his friendship with Justin to manipulate him into making statements that would shield Blake from the fallout. Justin, feeling trapped, was handed a prepared statement that he was expected to read publicly to protect Blake's reputation. The control over him during filming had been palpable. But it didn't end once the movie was released. Even as the fans began to take sides, Blake and Ryan seemed to want to dictate the terms of the conversation, ensuring that the public perception remained favorable to them. Blake's sense of entitlement extended to her work on the film It Ends With Us. Initially, it was agreed that 1% of the film's proceeds would go to a charity supporting survivors of domestic violence. However, when Blake joined the project, she made it clear that she had no interest in supporting organizations like No More, a group dedicated to raising awareness about domestic violence and fostering social change. Blake's decision to treat such a sensitive topic as little more than fodder for a romantic comedy drew widespread criticism. Her promotional efforts only served to amplify the growing sense of disregard for the subject matter. She went so far as to incorporate the film's themes into her own business ventures, even naming one of the drinks in her alcoholic line after a character from the movie, further trivializing the issue. Blake's actions throughout this period painted a portrait of someone deeply disconnected from reality, someone who cared more about controlling the narrative, maintaining her image, and prioritizing her own interests over the well-being of those around her. Whether it was dishing out hurtful comments, betraying friendships, or exploiting serious issues for personal gain, Blake Lively seemed intent on making everything about her. And as the public became more aware of these moments, it became impossible to ignore just how much damage was being done in the process.